much. Great, thank you. We're going to try something a little different now. You know, so often you pick cards, you find cards, you try to discover what the identity is. This isn't like any of those. You actually get to look at and think about which card you want. It's not going to be that kind of a trick. So you take one out and show it to everybody. And you know what?
What?
This is one of those cases where I even get to see what the card is.
You want to see?
Sure. Just for the... I knew you'd pick that one. Okay, so here you go. Place it right back in there so that everybody knows exactly what the card is. There will be no mystery as far as that's concerned. But I'm going to place it down into the center of the deck and ask you to give those a quick shuffle for me if you would.
Okay.
And once it's done, drop it into the middle. There you go. Okay. Very good. And I'm going to place it, let's see, where would be a good place? How about right there? Right there. Here's what I want to do. I want to place your hand underneath the table there. Make sure my hand is empty, nothing in my hand, nothing hidden around inside there. You can feel all around. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to press on top of the deck with one finger. Press a little harder, and all of a sudden you're going to feel something start to appear inside of your hand underneath the table. It's going to feel light at first, like a feather, slowly gaining weight until it actually materializes and lands inside of your hand. Did you feel something land inside of your hand?
Yeah.
Pull it out.
Get out of here.
Was that it? The card through the table is a really great effect. It's a very personal effect for the person whose hand is under the table because they actually get to experience, you know, a card magic in a very different sort of way. You know, Jimmy Grippo is one of those guys that got a lot of mileage out of doing this sort of thing on television programs because it would be the reaction of the host and his face and that sort of thing that really played very well on television. In constructing a card to the table, all you really need to do is have some sort of built-in misdirection that causes people to think that the card is very clearly in one spot while you lap the selection under cover of some sort of movement towards offering them the cards. I'll show you what I mean by that. This is a very simple form of misdirection here as I substitute and add one card on top of that 7 of hearts. With a break held by the right thumb, the packet pushes the selection forward for about 1.5 inches, dropping that card off. It's the right thumb at the back of the pack that lets you know that that card is lined up with the rest of the deck. And at just that moment, the left hand pivots palm down, showing the selected card out jogged. And then, in one continuing motion, the index finger brings it back to the deck as the hand turns over and pushes off the top card. Gives you a retention of vision there that's really convincing that their card never left their sight. And as you dribble that into the center of that upper packet and go to offer them that packet to shuffle, the left hand just goes to the edge of the table, thumbs the card into your lap, and after a shuffle or two, you can say, now place those into the center of that. And it's just a perfect way to misdirect where that selection actually is. Now, once the card gets into your lap, here's exactly what you do to set it up underneath the surface of the table so that it appears inside the hand of the spectator. Well, I've got Jerry Camaro here to play the role of the spectator. How you doing, Jerry?
Pretty good, Michael.
Well, this John Benzaeus card through the table, we're going to show him exactly how to hold that card against the underside of the table with one hand. It's really great. You'll need to go underneath the table with one hand, place it against the underside of the table, and the thumb holds the card against the underside of the table as the spectator brings their hand underneath the table. Now, the impression is that your hand is quite empty. They can feel your hand. You can even instruct them, you know, make sure that it's just what it seems to be. Nothing else underneath there. You can show your hand here. And as you press on top of the deck, you know, some indication to cause the magic to take place, All you have to do is move your thumb, and the spectator gets to feel that card literally land inside of their hand, associated with the touch on top of the table, and it's a wonderful, solid through solid, magical experience for the person whose hand's actually underneath the table. Wow, that's a fun thing, isn't it? Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, inside the world of magic, there's actually a legendary story about a showdown between a famous magician and the gambler. The gambler was the mysterious kid. Now, the magician, in classic magic humbleness, had been calling himself the king of cards. And, you know, gamblers, being the gamblers that they are, see, they just don't show off. You never see a gambler take a deck of cards and do something like this, because you're not going to say, well, hey, let's play cards, you know. So the way that they go about these things, it's a lot more subtle. And one of the things that they do to test their ability, not in a flashy way, but in a practical way, is to try and cut to 4 of a kind out of a shuffled deck. And that was the challenge that he proposed to the magician. It didn't matter which cards that he was working with, so the magician gave the cards a cut just like this and decided that the bet was on. Now, the first card that he cut to was a king, and from that point on, he had to cut to all 4. But now the gambler had said, you got to take them out of the deck so that you can't cut to the same card. That was fair, so he gives the cards a few cuts like this, and the bet was on, continuing now with the second king. See, but now every time you cut to a king, there's less kings to cut to. There were 4 kings. Each time you remove a king, there's less and less cards to cut to. 3 kings. Now there's only 1 king left inside of those 49 playing cards. The odds have changed considerably, and yet he was confident as he... Whoops. Okay, well, it was at this point that the gambler reached for the money, but the magician said, no, wait a second. We just said that I had to cut to any 4 of a kind. Now, wouldn't it be good if I could cast a shadow over that ace and change that ace into the 4th king? Would that be fair? After all, I am a magician. The gambler thought about it in a second and says, well, you know, I guess that would be fair. The magician said, yeah, it sure would be. Wish I could do it, but wouldn't it be even better if I could touch those kings over here and turn those kings into all 4 aces? But the gambler was a gambler to his core. He reached over quick as a wink, and he grabs the deck, and he gives it a quick shuffle and says, double or nothing. Now let's see you cut to the kings. Well, it's at this point that I said to the gambler, the magician said to the gambler, hey, I got places to go, things to do, but I'll do it real quick for you just to be a good sport. There, it's already done. The gambler said, well, what do you mean it's already done? The magician says, well, as you can see, there are no more kings in the deck. Each and every king is gone. They're no longer around. You challenged me to get them, and I did, in fact, get them. All 4 kings are now gone. Where did they go? He showed his hands empty, and he reached inside a pocket, and he pulled out the 1st king. He showed his hands empty. He reached in, and he pulled out a 2nd king. He reached in, he pulled out a 3rd king. He reached in, he pulled out the 4th and the final king, and that's the legend of the gambler versus the magician.